Well, what about the upper school? What's going to look different for the next year?
Sure. Are there any specific areas?
Well, I was thinking, let's just start at the top with humane letters.
Yeah.
So let's talk about English and history and what that will look like.
Well, that's a great way to start. In fact, I think that when you think about the structure of a classical Christian education, a lot of times I think that history is really the backbone of that cycle. And that's one of the reasons why I like the omnibus or humane letters kind of ideas that have been started here at Holy Trinity, where you take an era of history and an era of literature and you put those two things together so that you're learning that timeline of ideas. And so we're going to continue that. Our numbers up in the upper school are smaller, and history and English are areas where that timeline and that historical development is a good backbone. But older students are also able to kind of take those out of sequence, and there's not a building aspect from one to the next. And so because we have smaller numbers in our upper school, in those humane letters areas of history and English or literature, we're going to put 7th graders and 8th graders together so that they will have the same history and literature. 9th graders and 10th graders will have the same English or literature and history, and then 11th graders and 12th graders as well. When you have pairs like that, the older of the two groups dictates the content, and so that will match what those older groups need in terms of content. And then the next year you just flop that over, so to speak, so that over the course of 2 years, students are getting that timeline. By combining those classes, what you do is you create a situation where there's enough students in the classroom they can have a robust discussion. And Reverend Joe is really great at creating a class atmosphere that fosters good Socratic and seminar type discussion. And so we wanted to capitalize on that. And I've talked with Joe about as we move through this year and move into next school year, making sure that his time is structured so that he can spend more time with teachers, developing that across all of our upper school, that style of teaching across all of our upper school.
That's excellent. Well, let's go to languages next. So
Sure.
what will the language options be for our upper schoolers?
Yeah. So we've kind of already made an announcement earlier this school year that we were going to open up Spanish 1 for students beginning in 9th grade. So 9th graders can begin to take Spanish 1.
Okay.
So if most students would choose Spanish 1, then we would have 9th, 10th, and 11th graders who are all on track to take Spanish 1,
Okay.
right? And then one of the great things that does is it moves through the years. It really kind of sets us on a track in about 4 years where we can have an AP Spanish available. By the time the 9th graders get to 12th grade, they'll be prepared for that moving up. And so it's kind of a long-term view of what allows us to expand our AP options for our students. Now, if a student wants to take Latin, then we can find a way for that student to take Latin in high school as well.
That's great. Good options. Well, let's move on to the sciences. So what kind of adjustments will we see in the science offerings?
That's a good question. And in fact, the science department and I were talking even in the first half of the school year about making some adjustments to our science scope and sequence, just based on where students typically are developmentally and the way it matches up with particularly math, where math touches on science. So we were already planning on following a system that allows us to move biology from 11th grade to 10th grade, and then so students would take chemistry as 11th graders. So moving into next school year, what that means, again, because of small class sizes, we'll be able to take 10th grade and 11th grade and give them all biology. So those 11th graders who need biology will have it.
Okay.
And then the 10th graders will have biology as 10th graders so that when they're in 11th grade the following year, they'll be ready for chemistry.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you did mention math briefly.
Yes.
What about statistics and AP Calc? What's the situation there?
Oh yes, well we have students who have expressed interest in the AP calculus and some in statistics, and so we have the math people who can support both of those options, right? So we are going to offer statistics as an honors course and calculus as an AP course. and we also have a lead on some people who can provide our AP chemistry as well, because we want to maintain those AP options for families.
That's great. And then still having the anatomy and physiology
Yes.
as an option.
Yes.
Okay. What about, and just you mentioned AP, how will we go on continue preparing our students for AP exams, whether they've been in an actual AP class or not? Are there plans
Sure.
for that?
Oh, of course, yeah. So with the AP chemistry and the AP calculus, those are courses that we teach that follow the AP curriculum, and so those prepare those students. And teachers have done a really fabulous job here historically at Holy Trinity preparing students for those AP exams. What's interesting, and I found this to be really interesting about Holy Trinity, and I think just a testament to the quality of the teaching that does happen here, is that over the past couple of years, even though Holy Trinity has not offered AP English, Reverend Joe has created a kind of a supplemental instruction time for students who want to challenge the AP English exam. And so he teaches his regular Humane Letters course, and he creates time for students who are interested to take this supplemental instruction with him, and then they can then take that AP English exam. And as I've looked at the scores from the past, they do really well. They pass that AP exam.
That's true.
And
That
again,
puts them ahead for college.
It does, and again, I think it's a real testament to the quality of instruction that students get at Holy Trinity, that we don't have to even offer the AP course, and we still prepare students to successfully pass that exam.
That's tremendous. Okay, so we've talked about languages, we've talked about Humane Letters, talked about math and AP sciences. Is there anything different that you and your team have planned for our high school students, or upper school students for next year?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I've observed, and is just kind of true of all high schools, upper schools, is that we want our students to be well-rounded, but we often kind of create a pinch for them with busyness. And so one of the things we're going to do at the next year is make a little, what I call a flex period in our schedule. So we're going to extend the school day to like 3 o'clock. So, when I sit into an interview with new families and they say, when does the school day end? I say 2:52. That's a little odd, 2:52. But that's just the way it adds up with the number of minutes. But by extending that to 3 o'clock, it grabs some minutes. We're going to grab a minute or two here or there throughout the schedule. And that creates an extra period in the day. And we're going to place that period in the day right after lunch.
Okay.
We'll call it a flex time. For 7th and 8th grade or middle school students, that flex time will be very prescribed with intentional instruction for executive function and study skills.
Okay.
When you think about what really prepares middle school students for success in high school, obviously content and skill instruction is a big piece of that, but one of the best things that we can do for our middle schoolers is help them learn how to manage their time, how to manage their locker, how to make sure that they're managing their assignments, and those are skills that have to be taught. And so this flex time will be time specifically for them so that we can prepare them for that success in high school. Now for high schoolers with the flex time, the best way to think about it is that the sort of core baseline that it does is it provides our high school students with an opportunity to have a study hall. So student athletes, or when drama season is in, those kinds of things that students want to be able to participate in, those after school activities, this flex time gives them the opportunity to get a head start on their homework during the school day, so that there's not as much of that carrying over after a practice or a game. But then also in that flex time, we're going to take, for example, yearbook, which currently operates as a club outside of the normal school day, but we can put it right in that flex time. And so there's time during the school day for students to do the work that they would normally do to help prepare that yearbook. And it's not something that's over and above the usual time. That can also be a time, well, currently the clubs like the Mu Alpha Theta, the math club, the JCL, the Latin club, the FCA club, those that already kind of meet in an extended lunchtime, they'll continue to meet in that flex time. Okay. Again, it's flex time, and so you think about our seniors, and our seniors are going to be preparing for a senior thesis. And there's kind of a little arc to that. As the year gets started, there's not quite as much work, but then you reach this period of time when they really need to put a lot of focused time in preparing that senior thesis. And so this flex time is time built into the school day, again, where they can do that, it's dedicated time for them to work on that senior thesis as they prepare for that sort of big capstone element of their education here. And then there's just other things that can happen there. You know, students miss time for being ill or something like that, or they need to make up a test. Again, rather than saying that has to happen before school or after school, flex time can be a time for them to do that. So I think that really builds in a lot of time into our school day where students can get those sort of other things that always come with the school day but tend to get pushed out to the edges. We can incorporate a way to do those things within the context of a regular school day.
I love this idea, and I love it because it sounds like it sets our middle schoolers up to thrive once they get to high school, and if students need extra help, they can do it. And I love the fact that it helps balance family time and school time. So I'm really excited to hear that this is going to be implemented. Soli Deo Gloria, and thank you, Holy Trinity families, for watching.